that year it rained a bit on the bike ride, and on the descent in Lake Placid, you get up to about 59 miles per hour. And I could only hang on to my aero bars with like my thumb and this finger. So I'm descending this super windy terrain going 50 plus miles per hour, and it's wet, just hoping I don't crash.
What's up, everyone? You're listening to the Do Hard Things podcast by Elite SRS. The purpose of this show is to share stories of hardship and victory as an encouragement for those in the middle of their own hard thing. Because we know hardship produces perseverance, which produces character, which ultimately produces hope. Today's guest is Eric Hinman. Eric is a 5-time Ironman, an angel investor in health and wellness brands, and a fitness influencer with over 150,000 followers. Eric recounts his high-speed bike crash while training for the Lake Placid Iron Man and the resilience needed to compete just 9 days afterward. He was able to finish the race and make it to Kona, the pinnacle of the Ironman sport, the same year. Eric also reveals some of his tips and tricks for living intentionally to start living a life of growth and purpose. If you enjoy the show, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so more people can be encouraged by the stories we share. Now, here's the conversation with Eric Hinman. All right, got Eric Hinman on the Do Hard Things podcast. Super excited to have you and looking forward to hearing your story. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah. So context for folks, I like to ask this question. When people ask you what you do, how do you answer that?
Oh man, that's evolved over time. So these last 3 to 4 years have been helping others build their brands. That's been, how I trade time for money. With that said, I would still do the exact same things I do every single day, regardless of whether or not I was getting paid for it. So ultimately, I structure a lot of my day around wellness protocols. And that's, CrossFit workouts 5 days per week in the morning. That's some kind of aerobic activity 7 days per week, mountain biking, hiking, running, rucking. And then I have a religious recovery routine, sauna, cold exposure, and also community built into that, where that's a time where typically have 6 to 8 people rotating through our sauna and cold plunge every single night. So, 6 hours of my day are blocked out for wellness protocols. And a lot of that I'm able to multitask without multitasking. I'm certainly creating content and having engaging conversations and taking meetings in the sauna and inviting people to come and work out. So a lot of that is kind of going hand in hand with business. But I used to compete in Ironman, and that is what really reshaped my life to be built around exercise, eating healthy, getting enough sleep, recovery protocols. And I just realized that through those various things that I was the best version of myself. My cup was so full. I was able to give back. I had a lot of energy. I had a lot of mental clarity, and just was the best version of myself. So that's why I live my life the way I do today and why I prioritize all of those things.
There's so much in that. I don't even know where to start asking questions. So I think what I'll first ask is, at what point did you realize in doing Ironman training that the best version of yourself came from this lifestyle? Because it sounds like maybe you started doing Ironman competitions, not thinking, hey, this is best version of me, just like for whatever reason, I'm going to do this type of competition. When did it switch?
Yeah, definitely. So in my 20s, I partied like a rock star. I, abused alcohol and, would go out late night to parties, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and, big dinners, wine, shots, you name it. And I felt like that was fueling the best version of me because I was the life of the party. I thought I was fun to be around, and I met new people that way. And that was my community oriented, how I would bond with people. And I feel like that's a lot of what society kind of pushes us towards, is like, go to a bar and drink, you'll meet people, and go out to dinners and drink wine, and nothing wrong with any of that. I think there's a time and a place for it, but ultimately you pay for it. And when I got into Ironman training, I would get that similar feeling post run of just feeling like I was the man and feeling like I had lots of energy and mental clarity. And, I wasn't afraid to, be vulnerable and just be myself. So it was through the long runs, the long rides, all of that, where I'm like, man, this feeling that I get afterwards is even better than the feeling that I would get from indulging in alcohol. And I feel great the next day. I get a lot of sleep, and I wake up the next day, I can do it again. And, then the recovery protocols came in, and, that was just another like, wow, I feel so good after this. I'm going to keep doing this. There's something to it. So a lot of the things really just a one-man science experiment of, pretty easy variable of, do I feel good or bad after doing this? And I started to build my day around a lot of those things where I just felt really, really good, meaning, I had a lot of energy, I had clarity, and I had passion and purpose for everything I was doing. So yeah, that was really the shift.
So was there can you recall a moment, from the let's call it the party lifestyle, for lack of a better phrase, and to the wow, this training and this Ironman pursuit, this healthy lifestyle is giving me the same feeling? Like, was there a moment, or was it kind of just like it's like watching a tree grow? All of a sudden it was like, oh, it's bigger, or like, oh, I feel better.
It was kind of more watching a tree grow. I mean, I feel like certainly after each workout, you feel a certain way, but as that snowball effect happens, you start eating better, you get into recovery protocols, your friend group changes, you start to have different conversations with people, your environment changes. So it really was a massive shift over time of just these incremental things that led to other incremental things that, ultimately led to, kind of where I am now, of my life structured around this, and being in Denver, Colorado, where it's easy to do a lot of these things. And my entire friend group, they're athletes or entrepreneurs, they're risk takers, they're adventurers. So and that's a huge component of it too, is like the interactions that you're having with other people for your satisfaction in life, and also like the opportunities that are going to come to you in life. So yeah, it was more like a tree growing. And backtracking too, it wasn't like it all happened at once. There was one year where I really focused on purposeful training, like understanding why I was running at a certain heart rate, and why I was biking at a certain wattage, and why I was swimming the sets I was swimming. And then the next year it was focusing on diet, trying a high fat diet, trying a high carb diet, a high protein diet, whatever, what worked best for me. And then the year after that, it was sleep protocols, figuring out how can I get my best night's sleep. So, it didn't all happen at once either. It was just like each year I kind of focused on a new wellness routine. And, they say that it takes 60 or so days to create a new habit. I would try something for 60 plus days until it became a habit in my life. And then it was just on autopilot, and I could move on to the next thing.
Yeah. And I was going to ask about that, because, even listening, I have this tendency towards this thought, but I think I push against it. I think a lot of people would hear, all the things that you described of recovery protocols and all this exercise that you're pursuing, and aerobic activity 7 days a week, and cold bath, all this. They're like, I don't have time for that. Mm-hmm. And, and it takes a lot of intentionality and thought. It sounds like a lot of work, but everybody kind of wants it, and so there's this like tension that exists. And I think I'll call it the majority of people, of like, they want what you're talking about, this really healthy lifestyle and pursuit, but there's this like, oh, but that takes too much time or effort or energy. Can you just talk about, these different things you've inputted, the amount of work it was up front maybe versus, the amount of work it is now?
Sure.
And like scale it.
Yeah. I mean, so to create the freedom to be able to do this, the first 7 years after college, I built an insurance business that provided residual income. I still own that business. And, that's something I always tell young people is, early on in your career, try and create something that yields residual income and also is building an asset. Or if you're trading time for money, pick something that you really, really enjoy, which is what I do now with helping others build their brands. So that was kind of the first chapter of my life. And that was very different. I was driving 50,000 miles a year, sitting in a car, eating Subway for lunch because I thought that was healthy. So, from 21 until about 28, I didn't have the education. I didn't have any of this in my life. So, it's also never too late. I didn't get into Ironman until my late 20s, and it took 5 years to get to Kona. So in a 5-year period, I mean, you can go from fairly unfit to I went to this elite triathlete, but you need tunnel vision and you really have to dedicate, the time and purposeful practice to whatever you want to accomplish. So that would be the first thing. And then, second, I've been able to build my business around this. So we all need money to provide shelter and food and to support our families. I don't have kids. So I know there's glass balls that people can't drop. And I realize that what I said is 6 hours. That's a lot. It works for me because I don't have the glass balls that others have. But there all are ways to do this with, your family, the sauna and the cold exposure. That's certainly something you can do with your family. And I feel like it really deepens bonds. I have some of the best conversations when I'm in the sauna. So I think, and, you could join a gym where there's a sauna, so you can hit the sauna after the gym. Ultimately we create our reality, and we can change our reality if we realize that we no longer enjoy our reality. And, those are messages I get often on social media is like, well, I've got all this stuff. And I'm like, I get it. And like, it's hard to like rip a Band-Aid off. It was hard for me to move from Syracuse to Denver. I had everything I needed in Syracuse. I had businesses there. It wasn't an easy decision, but I made that decision, and I feel like I'm thriving by being in this environment. So I changed my environment. That changed my reality. Same with friend groups. It's difficult. Again, I 100% get that, but it is a Band-Aid you can rip off, and, you can start going to wellness events if, that's the friend group that you want to start getting in with. You can sign up for a triathlon. You don't have to start with an Ironman. So I think it's just kind of dipping your toe. And, again, like I started out with 30-minute workouts 5 days a week with a personal trainer before I ever did my first triathlon. And I was training, 5 hours, 6 hours a week for my first triathlon. And then, when I was competing in Ironman, trying to get to Kona, I'm training 25 hours a week. So, I think the hardest part is starting, committing to something and just starting, making that a habit, and then moving on to the next thing. And I think too often, social media is a blessing and a curse, because we can see people, for me, I've been doing this for 14 years now. So you can see me 14 years later and be like, damn, I want that. But like, you got to see me 14 years ago of like each year, just kind of building blocks. And this, I had a Lego, and then I created a whole village out of the Legos, and it certainly takes time. And the hardest part is just like, where do I start? And to that, I just tell people, like, if you want to run a marathon and you've never run before, like, just tomorrow, go out and run a half mile. Like, you just have to start somewhere. And as far as, where to get the most bang for your buck, I feel like lifting weights and doing highly anaerobic intervals, kind of going back and forth between the two, is the best way for you to reap the benefits of exercise. So, day one might be 45 minutes of weight training with a little anaerobic conditioning at the end, call it 60-minute total workout. The next day, you could do an easy walk, 30-minute, 40-minute walk. You might be sore from that first workout. And then the day after that, again, heavy weights and doing something anaerobic. Do that 3 to 5 times per week, 45-minute to 60-minute segments. Like, that's all you need to be lifestyle fit, to feel really, really good, and to show up for others as the best version of yourself.
Yeah. So talk about the community piece a little bit, because there is a predominant voice in fitness and health and wellness that is like about you, and it's a singular pursuit, and that really exists in society at large. It's a reflection of our culture. But talk about how important community is to those goals, and even for yourself. Like, you've talked quite a bit, even in just this short period of time, of like having that friend group, having community that you're engaged with in these things. It's not you on an island.
Yeah. You're always going to go further with others. You're always going to get there faster with others. So for example, yesterday, I hosted this community cold plunge in Golden, Colorado. The water temperature is 33 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, more often than not, if I'm pulling up to a cold stream by myself, I'm probably not going to jump in. It's too easy to say no. There's no one there for accountability. There's no one there for motivation. When you get a bunch of people together that are all doing something hard together, it forces you to do it. So I love community for that aspect. CrossFit, same thing. Like this morning, I did a CrossFit open workout. I had other people doing it with me. I had people cheering. I went way harder than I would ever go if I was just doing it in a silo. So having others around you definitely is going to get you further faster. And also, like, we're tribal creatures, and so much of our fulfillment and happiness in life comes from our bonds with others. So again, that's why I love CrossFit so much. That's why I invite people over to our house every single day to sauna and cold plunge. I love impacting others, and it also like fills me up. I love giving people that same feeling that I got from all of the things I do. It makes me feel really good knowing that they walked away, doing that contrast therapy session, and they're going to go home and sleep better. They feel alive. So that's also an important part of community for me, is sharing what I've learned along the way so that hopefully it positively impacts others. And when you do hard things together, like, deep bonds are formed. The Ironmans that I did with friends, and any kind of endurance workouts, CrossFit workouts, anything hard that you do with others, you almost have this fraternal bond with that person for life from doing that.
Yeah. There's so much richness in the community aspect of life as a whole, but like especially in pushing ourselves. I was talking to the guy, an author. He wrote the book Do Hard Things, Steve Magnus, and he talked about this study where if you stand at the bottom of this really steep hill and you got to run up it, you'll perceive that hill as like, let's call it 60 degrees, very steep. But if you stand at the bottom of the hill with others, you perceive it as less steep, like it's less of a challenge, like because you're with people. Nothing else changed other than the fact that you have people alongside you, which is fascinating to me, right? Like, you have this capacity now to perceive things in a totally different light with people.
I think there's an accountability aspect to it, and then there's also like a presence aspect to it. You're present instead of like wondering and dreading and being anxious. You're with other people and their energy, and you're just present with them. And if the guy next to you can do it, and he can do it, and she can do it, then why I'm going to try doing it too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I want to get into your story here in a second, but I want to just ask a couple more little questions about your lifestyle, because it's a unique lifestyle. There's not a lot of people who one, have the freedom, like you talked about, to be able to do it, but two, have the intentionality that it requires to like look at every aspect of your life and go, why am I doing this? And so can you talk a little bit about like where that why intentionality came from in you? Like, were you kind of just born that way? Was that given to you through your family, or was it a friend group? Like, what was the origin of that? Because most people don't ask the why about most things.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been very competitive against myself. I played 3 sports in high school. I would play basketball in my parents' backyard for 3 hours every single night growing up. I loved basketball. And then when I got into weightlifting in college, I definitely wanted to see what my limits were for bench press and, all of these more vanity-based lifts. And then Ironman, is a very individual sport. It's not there. You're not relying upon anyone else. You might have a coach that, is helping you with programming the workouts, but ultimately your results are directly correlated to how much purposeful practice you put in. Business is the same way, which is why I love entrepreneurship so much, because I like controlling my destiny. I guess I've always just been someone who, marches to my own beat. And I like being able to have control of the outcome. So I pick things, whether it's business, sport, training, whatever, where I have, pretty much direct control of the outcome. So that I know that like I'm the only one to blame. It's my work that goes into it, and the results is directly correlated to that. So yeah, I think it was kind of instilled in me at a young age. I watched my father manage a small insurance company, so I watched him as a leader. My mom wrote grants for a school, so she was a leader. So I kind of always wanted to be in a leading role, and also really wanted to just have control of my destiny.
Yeah, and it sounds like you care a lot about the results, like in a tangible way of like, okay, understanding why that result occurred and what the steps were along the way to yield that result. Which
Yeah.
somebody's not motivated to the result, maybe it doesn't matter as much. But
Yeah, I think there's satisfaction. I mean, the result for me now is much more intrinsic. Like, I don't really care about beating others. I don't care about winning stuff. Like, it's more, I did the CrossFit Open workout today. The rewarding part of that workout was the past 5 or 6 years that I've spent specifically, focused on building strength and building anaerobic capacity. So it's cool when you get to perform and see all of those years of hard work come together. And it's kind of the same with business too. It's like, I don't get that excited landing new deals anymore. I think I get most excited about all of the work I put in to be in a place where opportunities are prevalent. So I think it's really the journey that's so exciting. It's not when you sell a business for a big multiple. It's, honestly, it wasn't even Kona. It was more like the journey to get there that is so rewarding. And then when you get there, you're like, damn, I'm here. That's really cool that I designated 4 years of my life to get to this place.
Right. It's all of that cumulative effort to the final end result, not like you couldn't just like take the helicopter there and have it have the same impact, right? It's the journey, to your point.
Wouldn't be fulfilling.
So one other question before I ask you the kind of the signature question for this podcast. You seem like somebody who's got like a bucket list of hard things, like always kind of ready to go. Mm-hmm. Can you share a few of them that you got that you're in store for this year or you're hoping to pursue?
Yeah, definitely. So I look at these things as obstacles more than goals. And I mean, I have small obstacles every day, whether it's my CrossFit workout in the morning or the sauna contrast therapy every day, public speaking. I love having like these little obstacles on a regular basis. And then as far as big obstacles, I always self-impose those as well. So this year I have the triple bypass, which is a 120-mile bike ride through Colorado, going over 3 mountain passes. I think it's like 14,000, 16,000 feet of elevation gain. I'm likely doing Leadville 100 mountain bike ride. Like, these are things where I'm going to have to designate 4 months of purposeful training in order not for it to be a complete sufferfest. So I like having those types of things in my regimen. I compete in high rock still. I'm doing the CrossFit Open right now. I plan on, continuing with the open process, eventually, hopefully getting to the games in my age group. And all of these things are hard. It hurts, but you grow from that so much. And it also opens your mind up to what's possible. I feel like my friends here in Colorado are the same. I have friends that do these crazy endurance races, and all of that has been kind of normalized for me because I have so many friends that do these things. But, 10 years ago, these people would be an anomaly. I would have looked at them as like, how the hell did they do that? And like, they must have some genetic gift. And now I just realized that these people spent, 5 years with tunnel vision to get to where they got and whatever they're looking to do.
Yeah, and that's such a good perspective to just remind everyone of, right? Is this idea that is, and you said it earlier, it's not like you can't just look at somebody right now where they are and separate them from all the work and effort and the transformation that took place in X amount of years when they started. Mm-hmm. Like, there is a significant sacrifice that comes with whatever end result people are striving for. When they look at somebody and go, that's what I want, and it's hard. It's hard to like see the full journey in an Instagram post or in one YouTube video. Yeah. So let's talk about your journey a little bit through this signature question for the podcast. And the whole point of the podcast is to be an encouragement for people in a hard season, because when you're in it, it's just hard to like get outside of the valley and have any kind of hope or perspective, but people's
Mhm.
stories can kind of shine a light down and go, no, I've been there,
Mhm.
and this is why it was good, or this is how I got through it, and like give some life and breath into where somebody's at. And so the question for you is, what is the hardest thing in your life that you wouldn't take back, and then why? If you enjoy the podcast, please do us a favor and head to your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. It helps a ton. And there's a reason all the podcasts you listen to ask you to do this. We want to continue to encourage people in the middle of their difficult seasons, and your ratings help boost our podcast visibility and the stories of our guests. Did you pause it and leave a review? If so, thank you. All right. Back to our conversation.
Hardest thing in my life that I wouldn't take back. So one of them was, I'll relate it to athletics, and then I'll talk about one with a business. So Ironman Lake Placid, 2000, it was either 2013 or 2014, about 10 days before the race, I crashed on my bike going about 25 miles per hour. And to this day, I still can't bend that finger from the knuckle down. The joint and cartilage got infected, and it damaged my ability to bend it. So we're 10 days out from a race that I have literally trained 4 years for. And I'm the fittest I've ever been, trying to get to Kona. And, I go to the emergency room. I'm in the emergency room for 5 hours, and I'm asking the doctor, do you think I'll be able to swim tomorrow? Like, I'll definitely be able to bike and ride, right? And they're like, no, like, you should not be doing any of those things. You definitely should not compete in the race. So the next day, I definitely couldn't swim, but I was able to get on my bike indoors and bike with a bag over my hand. I had stitches on my chin. I had stitches on my finger. I had road rash everywhere. Maybe 2 days after that, I got to run again with a bag over my hand again, so that I could prevent the amount of moisture getting into the stitches. 3 days before the race, I had the stitches taken out, and this was still like an open wound on my finger. And there were some doctors at Lake Placid with me, and I'm like asking them, what should I do? And, some were saying you shouldn't do it. It likely would get infected in the water. And then others who knew, just how competitive I was and how much time I had put into this, who also were racing, were like, if it were me, I probably would do it. As a doctor, I'm going to tell you not to do it.
Yeah.
But knowing like how much time you've put in and that you want to get to Kona, like, yeah, you don't get this opportunity every day. So I ended up racing, and I didn't get to swim at all leading up to the race. I had no idea how it was going to feel on my hand. The race officials let me buddy tape my fingers together. So I was able to like pull from all of them, and it wasn't just putting pressure on this finger, because this finger was just like so red and inflamed. And that year it rained a bit on the bike ride, and on the descent in Lake Placid, you get up to about 59 miles per hour. And I could only hang on to my aero bars with like my thumb and this finger. So I'm descending this super windy terrain going 50 plus miles per hour, and it's wet, just hoping I don't crash. I ended up qualifying for Kona. I had a great race, but leading up to it, like I wish that never happened, because I thought that it was going to eliminate my ability to compete in Lake Placid, to get to Kona. And it was such a blessing in disguise, because it just taught me how to overcome adversity. And, when other things have crept up in life that seemed really hard and difficult in the moment, it made me realize that, in the moment, these things seem monumental, but when you look back on them, they're just speed bumps in life. And we all have speed bumps in life. Like, it literally is just kind of a roller coaster ride. Sometimes you're just on the up and up, and then, something can derail you so fast. And now when something derails me, I look back at all of these things where there was a lot of adversity, and I realize, like, in the moment, like, this sucks, but it's probably just going to be a speed bump in life. And ultimately I get back to the things that I know get me back to being the best version of me. So I get back to exercise. I jump in cold water. That always clears my mind. So many of these protocols that I do on a regular basis are to help with that roller coaster ride of life, so that you can manage your mood and you can manage your energy.
So talk about the mental aspect of, you crash. And what was your initial if you can remember, what was your initial thought? Like, I hope I can race. There's no way I'm racing. This is terrible. Or like, this is just a speed bump. Like initial thought as that crash took place.
Yeah, I mean, initial thought was, yeah, this is definitely going to derail me. Like, I may not be able to race Ironman Lake Placid. And then in that emergency room, it was asking the questions, and the questions not going, the answers not the ones I wanted. And then the next day, like when I was able to ride, like I'm like, okay, like I think I can ride. And then a few days later, when I was able to run, I'm like, okay, I can run. And the swim is only 10% of the race. And as long as I could bear the pain of the water on my finger, I didn't really care about the repercussions. Like I was in the moment. All I really cared about was, getting to Kona that October. So, once I was able to ride and run and know that, it wasn't deterring either of those things, I was like, I know what adrenaline feels like. I'm going to have so much adrenaline in the swim that I think it'll trump the pain. And it did.
Wow. So from the first doctor appointment or emergency room, that 5-hour stint, to like, all right, I'm in, it doesn't matter what the doctors are telling me at this point, like I'm committed. Was it that clear of a decision, or was there this like back and forth seesaw until
back and forth.
Got in?
It was literally back and forth until the day before the race. So it was 9 days of, teeter-tottering, asking questions, kind of assessing the situation, assessing my finger, assessing my energy, assessing when I was going to be able to get the stitches taken out. So yeah, it was literally until the day before. And then the day before, I kind of made the commitment of like, all right, they're going to let me buddy tape my fingers. Like I'm just going to send it, and I'm going to do my best to like not, hurt my finger when I'm putting the wetsuit on or taking it off, like, control as much as I possibly could. I did ride a couple times outside prior. So, I could put some pressure on like the inside of my hand to know that I could at least somewhat hold on to my aero bars. So I just did things that gave me a little bit of confidence that it was still possible. But it was very much just teeter-tottering back and forth of like, am I doing this? Am I not doing this? I don't know.
Yeah. And how much did it help to have a couple of those doctors who like had some empathy for your situation and could give you their like personal recommendation versus their doctorate? Mm-hmm. Like, did that really help, or was it really just you assessing yourself? Because other people's voices in the midst of our circumstances have an impact. And so I'm curious how impactful that was.
It definitely had an impact, but it was kind of like I could hear 99 no's and one yes, and all I was going to listen to is that one yes. So, once I got that one yes, I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. So it definitely,
you sure are a gift.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Wow. Okay. So now, you got through it. It went well. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, like now you can look back on things and see them as speed bumps. Do you find yourself more quickly able to recognize them as speed bumps, in the moment versus, later on afterwards, looking back at it as like a small blip on the radar because of that experience? Like, how quick are you able to recognize those things now because of the past?
Yeah, much quicker. And I mean, with anything in life, it sets in reps. So it wasn't just that, like there's been other adversities. And I feel like the more adversities you have and the more you're able to overcome through, protocols of, not only the exercise, but like, I think human connection is so important. Like talking to people, if you're going through something, seeking someone out who's also gone through it, like that's super important. So I kind of know the steps I need to take now in order to overcome any of those. Like there's always an energy shift. Something bad happens. Like I don't know that any of us can really control that initial energy shift. I think the only thing that we can control is the amount of time it takes to get back to a positive mindset. And again, sets and reps of doing it and then having these protocols that you use to get back to that positive mindset. So over time of, multiple adversities and then multiple times of getting back to a positive mindset, I definitely am able to bounce back quicker, but it's not by just like sitting there and sulking. It's by getting back to some of these normal routines that I have.
Yeah. And just for clarity's sake, like maybe you can explicitly state what that's because we've talked a lot about your physical protocols in the training, but this is like what we're talking about is mental in a way. Like obviously those two things are connected. Your physical state and your mental state. But could you outline maybe like the 5 steps or 3 steps or whatever it is for your mental kind of reset that you have?
Yeah, well, I mean, they are 100% connected. I use the physical for the mental reset. So much of what I do is for that mental and emotional well-being. So exercise, the endorphin rush that you're going to get from that. I mean, that puts me in a positive mindset after I get done working out. Cold exposure is where I think we get the most bang for our buck. You could be having the worst day in the world and you jump in 40-degree water for 3 to 5 minutes, like it instantly clears your mind and like you're back to a fairly positive mindset. So, that is a protocol that is way more mental for me than it is physical. In the past, I certainly have used it for inflammation and for physical recovery, but now it's so much more of mental recovery. And it doesn't even have to be a bad day. It can just be a busy day. And I want something that just kind of reorganizes my mind. It takes my to-do list that feels like it's mounted vertically on my head and just pushing me down. And all of a sudden that to-do list is just like laid out nicely in front of me. And I feel like I can easily just tiptoe all over all of it and accomplish everything that's on my list. So cold exposure is probably my number one protocol for mental well-being.
Wow. It's so interesting because I couldn't tell you exactly how long ago it was, but it feels like, in the last 3, I'll call it maybe 5 years, that this cold exposure stuff has really kind of like risen to the forefront. And it sounds like you've been using it for longer than that. Do you remember how long ago you started doing it? And
I do.
When or why you did?
Yeah, so it's only been a little over 5 years. I started in 2017. There's a place here in Denver called Denver Sports Recovery, and I went there religiously for 2 years, every single night. And the standard protocol there was sitting in an infrared sauna for about 50 minutes, and then doing 3 rounds, 5 minutes in a cold plunge, 5 minutes in a hot tub, just going back and forth. And I noticed the benefits immediately, but really over, months of doing it consistently, I wasn't anxious anymore. I was much less stressed out whenever any, bad situations came up. I didn't get sick, it helped build a robust immune system. So yeah, my start in it was 5.5 years ago. Saunas date back to like 2013, 14. So I've been doing sauna, exposure a little bit longer, but the cold exposure and specifically contrast therapy of going from hot to cold, just a little over 5 years.
Yeah, which is like the modern version of what people used to do as kids, where they'd like sit in the hot tub and then go roll in the snow and then go get back. It's like we do it as kids, right? But
yeah,
it was more just for the challenge than anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned the physical. You said you had a couple stories. And so I think the other one was related to business, and wanted to hear what that one was.
Yeah, I mean, I've had various businesses that have gone south, a gym that I was involved in. Initially, when I first started a software company, the first 2 or 3 years, just pouring money into it before we pivoted. And, with each of those, I've looked at each failed business as an opportunity to learn, not to make those same mistakes again, and B, as some of them have been a means to an end. So for example, with the software company, the first 2 or 3 years, my business partner and I very much failing with just dumping money into this app that wasn't generating any revenue. And then we ended up meeting 5 really talented Syracuse University students. And we ended up pivoting from being a product to a service. We started building apps for customers. And, then sure, we started generating revenue and eventually became profitable. So, oftentimes failures become successes. You just got to bang your head against the wall long enough for something to work out. And you can't, you can't be so narrow in what this is. I think you need to be open to other outcomes. And I've learned that over time, that if it doesn't work immediately, okay, maybe there just needs to be a small adjustment in what we're doing, a small adjustment in the people, a small adjustment in the customer. But I look at a lot of these things as like throwing darts at a dartboard. Like you have to throw a lot of freaking darts until you finally hit a bullseye. So that's how I think of a lot of these businesses now, is just like throwing darts. And then eventually, if you throw enough darts, you're going to get close to, or, right dead center in the bullseye.
Yeah. So let's use the analogy, because you could take that analogy and say, well, you just have like 25 darts and you just keep throwing, and they're all individual efforts and pursuits. Or you have like two darts or one dart, and you throw it, you miss, you go get it, throw it again. It's something different, but it's the same dart, right? Like, so, when you think about that analogy, is it more of the former, having, 25, this kind of scattershot approach, or is it a recalibration of the same dart to hit the bullseye eventually?
Yeah, I think in building your own business, it's the latter. It's the you throw a dart, grab it, throw it again, grab it, throw it again. Investing, is more of the like just throw lots of darts. Like I make a lot of angel investments, and I kind of know that some are going to fail, some, maybe I'll get my money back, and hopefully some are the home runs that pay for all the losers. So I think it depends where your focus is. If it's investing, I think it's better to sprinkle a lot of darts all over the place, within your realm of expertise and within your realm of where you feel like you can add value beyond just putting in money. But as far as your own business, yeah, I think it's the latter of, yeah, you're throwing a dart, you might miss the bullseye, you go back, you grab it, you throw it again, you might miss a little bit, but you're getting closer to the bullseye. And yeah, you just have to be willing to tinker and talk to people and put yourself out there and allow for chance encounters to happen and allow for opportunities to present themselves.
Mm. So talk about on the investing side, when you're determining if it's even worth throwing the dart, like what are the things that you're looking at? Because sounds like you've done it quite a bit, and you've probably come to this, little bit of a checklist of like, okay, is this present? Is this present? Is this present? Is this not present? Okay, this might be a wise thing to pick up and throw.
Yeah. So first and foremost for me, I mean, so many of these are like long-term things. The company has to get acquired. They have to go public. It's not like investing in Tesla where it goes up and down, every single day and you can just easily take your money out. So for me, it's more about how much value can I add beyond the money that I'm kicking in. That's why I love doing these angel investments, is I feel so much more valuable to a small, rapidly growing consumer brand in the health and wellness space than I do to a company like Tesla, where I'm not really moving the needle at all with any value I can provide to them, nor am I moving the needle at all by the small amount of money that I would put into their stock. So for me, that's kind of the primary thing, is like, I want to be able to add a lot of value. People matter so much. So I invest in people and their ability to create a community-oriented brand and a brand that can generate awareness through either community or people buying into a lifestyle around the brand. So I look for those. Ice Barrel is a great example. 10,000 is a great example. They've both created brands that have these massive communities that have formed around them. And they've both created, this lifestyle aspect to their brand, where when you buy a pair of 10,000 shorts, you're really buying into the lifestyle of the 10,000 hour rule and the people that represent the brand and how they live their lives. So that's another component to it. And then, is it something that I'm going to use regularly in my life? Is it something that I like? 10,000 I wear for all of my gym workouts. We have multiple ice barrels here at the house. So, is it a product or service that I'm going to use on a regular basis? And is it, again, something where I feel like my audience is going to be interested in it, so I can add value to the brand by exposing it to my audience? And also, like, I think about my audience too. I like investing in brands that not everyone already knows about, so that for my audience, I'm exposing them to the latest and greatest.
Yeah, so there's quite a few different variables in play. It sounded like probably the most important is who's kind of leading or rallying this brand, like who's in charge and making decisions, and then are they creating a community of value? Like, and obviously there's other things that are all important in investing, but like, if you had to peg a couple of those, sounded like two very important ones.
Very important.
Which is interesting. Can you talk about the community side a little bit and why that matters? Because that hasn't always been the thinking. It's like, well, show me your budget and your P&L, and those things still matter. But this idea of community in a brand has kind of like grown. It's almost this buzzworthy topic now. And do you have any insight into why that's become so important today?
I mean, I think social media is what has allowed for it to happen. You know, you have these communities that form around products like an ice barrel where, you know, everyone is posting their cold plunge session in their ice barrel or jumping in a cold stream. I mean, I think for me personally, it's so satisfying to see others using something that I enjoy using and knowing the feeling that I get from using it, that they're likely getting from it. And like any of these community events that I attend or host, the bonds that people form are just incredible. So I love supporting brands that, you know, allow for deep bonds to form. So I think it really goes back for me personally to, like, again, that feeling of value. Like I want to feel a certain way from the products and services I'm using and the products and services that I'm talking about and others are using. But I think social media is what has really allowed for these smaller brands specifically to build communities around their brand, and to just have people who love the product or service talking about it instead of them having to go out and buy a billboard.
Right. And there's probably as our societies have become increasingly isolated or individualized, and post COVID and remote work, and there's just an enhanced need for people to find a community, because it's not necessarily in their neighborhood, because people just drive in and put their garage door up and put it right back down, and you don't see them anymore. Or there's less and less these like YMCA kind of social settings that people can go to. Like these brands became the rallying, because it's so interest based, right?
Definitely.
That didn't exist before, and social media lets you kind of cultivate it. Yeah. Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about, like, you're somebody who's done a lot of difficult things, specifically physical challenges, and who seeks them out intentionally. So what advice do you have for somebody who maybe is trying to get off of, the couch and start to do something difficult, or is currently just in the middle of a hard season right now and needs some encouragement to keep going? Those are two different questions, and maybe it's different advice, but I'll let you pick and choose.
Yeah, I mean, for the first one, it's like signing up for an obstacle, something that you're scared about. I think it's always better if you can rally others to do it. You know, I have some other friends that'll be doing this triple bypass with me. We'll train together. I know that they'll keep me accountable and I'll be accountable to them. Having things like Whoop or Strava, like any of these digital platforms that allow for social connection and allow for, again, accountability, I think they help a lot, where you know that there's other people out there that'll be like seeing what you're doing from a strain standpoint, a sleep standpoint, or on Strava, biking segments. So I love that accountability aspect of those different platforms. And then like just signing up for something, that's why I sign up for these endurance things or the CrossFit Open. It's like it forces me to be purposeful in my daily intentions and training so that I can overcome this obstacle. So I think that those three things are super important. And then as far as, going through the hard season, it goes back to like figuring out these protocols that bring you back to your best self. So, for me, again, that's exercise, that's cold exposure, that's sauna, that's human connection with like-minded people, that's getting outside, getting vitamin D, doing, running in nature, planning an adventure, traveling to places where I want to meet new, interesting people, organize community events. Like all of these things are part of my tiny wins that I incorporate into my day-to-day routine. And again, it's more for like mental well-being than it is for any kind of physical well-being.
Yeah. It's so good to be reminded, like, okay, I can reset my mind through what I do with my body. Right.
They're so correlated.
Because it feels like I need to sit down and journal, which, there's some value in that. And like that is needed. Or sometimes I just need to verbally process, although I'm more of an internal processor. But really, like, more than anything, it's probably like I need to just go for a run or go jump in a really cold body of water, which has never really been on my list. But the more I talk to people, the more it probably should be. One of the guys I work with is like a huge advocate for cold showers. And I just listen to him a little bit like he's crazy. But then I keep hearing people that are like, no, this trick really works. It's like, okay, at some point I'm the crazy one if I don't try it,
Yeah, cold showers definitely work, and that's a great way to start. But like fully submerging in cold water is a very different experience than that cold shower from the mental and emotional benefits of it.
Yeah. I all I have to draw on is like when I would go backpacking and jumping in a lake up in the mountains or something, like takes your breath away, but I don't stay in for very long. So it's the next level to just hang out in the water. Okay. So to land the plane for folks, what is a hard thing that you're in the middle of right now?
I mean, physically, I just did the CrossFit Open workout this morning. So
okay, how'd you do? I've been wanting to ask you since you mentioned it. How did you do? Because it's a hard workout.
Good. I had 226 was my score for it. So I got 26 calories off of the ring muscle ups. It's my second time doing it. I did it on Friday as well. On Friday, I got 213. It's a fun workout for me. I typically don't retest those workouts because they're so taxing on your nervous system. But this one for me is less taxing on my nervous system and more of a fun challenge. I'm not going to be wrecked from it. Like some of the other open workouts, I generally am completely wrecked from it. So I wouldn't redo it if I was still really sore from it. I did well in my age group as of now, top 50, which I want to land in the top 30 or 50 in the open. And then, we'll have quarterfinals and semifinals. So I mean, that's something hard that I'm doing right now where like these next 3 weeks, I kind of have to plan my days around being recovered enough to hit that workout super hard on Friday. And, if for some reason I didn't do as well as I wanted to do, to be able to redo it again on Monday. I guess every day is more built around hard things, the anaerobic workouts, they're never easy, I think you develop a mental resilience around it, but the feeling for me is no different than the feeling for anyone. Like it hurts. I'm laying on the floor afterwards. Like they're painful. But I've done it enough, again, going back to the sets and reps, I've done it enough to understand that like, I'm not going to die from it. I know what the feeling is like. I know that afterwards it's type 2 fun. I'm going to feel amazing afterwards. So a lot of these things, I do it because of that, because afterwards is when I'm going to get tremendous benefits of just feeling really, really good.
Yeah. All the way back. That's full circle, all the way back to, it used to be the, going out drinking, being in that social environment. And then it was, I realized that this actually is going to feel good afterwards with the physical activity and exercise. Man, it's like you planned it that way. Start there and in there.
You planned it that way.
I wish I could say I did. So Eric, for people who want to keep up with you, know what you're doing, maybe this is their first time encountering you and what you're about, like where can people follow you or keep tabs?
Yeah, Instagram is best. It's my name, Eric Hinman. It's the same on TikTok, Eric Hinman. I think it's Eric.Hinman on YouTube. But message me on Instagram with any questions. I love chatting with people. I love, sharing anything that I think can help others. So if you're starting your health and wellness journey or you have any questions around your health and wellness journey, just shoot me a DM and I'll reply to all of them. Cool.
Well, I appreciate you being on and sharing your story, and it's always fun to have people who are really intentional about growth and encountering obstacles to share some of their experience and insights. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for allowing me. Appreciate it, Dan.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to the Do Hard Things podcast by Elite SRS. We hope you are encouraged today and have a newfound hope to persevere. Be sure to subscribe for more great episodes and conversations. And if you ever want to watch an episode, check out our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/EliteSRS. Have a blessed day.